All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. Purpose of today's webinar is to primarily cover the residential tax credits for 2023. There's been tons of questions on that, probably, hopefully, from most of you guys. So we're going to focus on that. We also do have a few other items on the agenda because these things all kind of like tie into each other. So we'll go through the tax credits in detail. We'll talk about your local utility rebates and how sometimes you can double dip those two things, the tax credit and the rebate. You can't always do that, but many times you can. We'll talk about the rebates that are coming from the IRA, at least a little tiny bit that we know about those. And then we'll do some examples online for anybody who wants to hang out on how to find some of the AHRI certificates, because all of these things will require you to have an AHRI rating. Not all these things, almost all these things will require an AHRI rating. All right, so that's our agenda for today. I do have to put this disclaimer on there, and the we in this case is me. I don't know if there's anybody else, but I am not awesome at reading laws. So when the IRA language came out in August, that was really fun. And I'm not really good at doing taxes, so that's been really fun. But I have more time to focus on it than most people. So I went through all this stuff and got a lot of help from a lot of other people. And I think I have a good picture of what we're talking about. But I just need to throw a disclaimer out there that you need to talk to your tax pros before you actually make a tax credit claim. All right. So first off, I want to just go through briefly on one slide last year's tax credits, because that's the taxes that your customers are currently filling out right now. So all the big dollar amounts you hear for stuff, that doesn't apply to people doing their taxes right now. If they installed something in 2022, it's the smaller, older dollar amounts that are applicable. And specifically, that credit, as has gone on for the past 12 years, they let it expire every 2 or 3 years, let it linger for a while. We don't know if it's going to be there, and then they renew it retroactively. The same thing happened now. In August, they renewed the 25C tax credit, which previously expired at the end of 2021. They renewed it for 2022, and it was the same tax credit rules for 2022, meaning it's a $500 maximum credit for your whole life. If you've ever claimed it before for anything, doors, windows, whatever, you can never claim it again. Additionally, these other caps are also part of that, except the bottom one, heat pumps, is not part of 25C. But that $500 maximum credit, 150 could be from your furnace or boiler, 95% AFUE, $50 for having an awesome, efficient fan inside your furnace or fan coil, $300 on your heat pump. This says heat pump split, and those are the rules. There are rules for packaged heat pumps as well. I didn't put them on here because they're rare in our area. $300 for an AC, $300 for a water heater, $300 for a heat pump water heater. And then unrelated to 25C, there's also another tax credit for heat pumps that has on a geothermal heat pumps that has been on a sunsetting thing where it's been reducing from 30% downward at 2% every cycle, down to 22%, which is still awesome. 22% of the installed cost of a geothermal system. So if your customer installed something last year, this is the money they can claim. What does that mean to you? One, they may come back to you and ask you for ratings on their equipment or AHRI certificates, and you need to help them with that. Two, you may want to look at your old records, look to see who had these systems that installed them earlier in the year and you didn't know about the tax credit because it didn't exist yet, and then contact them and say, hey, by the way, here's some free money you can get back on your taxes. They might appreciate that, and maybe you get extra business out of it down the road. All right. So that's the 2022 stuff. Just putting it out there so you know what it is. 2023, which is the taxes people will be filing 12 months from now, those work very differently, and that's what's new. And those new rules came out in August, or at least part of the rules came out in August with the IRA language, Inflation Reduction Act. And then further defined by the CE or efficiency tiers that came out. Before we dive into those, we do need to explain for everybody, just in case they're not aware, for both the federal tax credits and some of the utility rebates we'll talk about later, SEER versus SEER 2 type language. So if you didn't know, and I'm sure you do, but if you didn't know, the minimum efficiency, the first of this year, for regular AC systems in the northern climates where almost all of you guys are from, increased from 13 SEER to 14 SEER. I don't know why my slide is missing the very critical number of 14. I don't know what I did there, but that would say 14. I don't know why it's not on there. So that has happened. Oh, there's some kind of weird What the heck? I don't know what I did on my slide. I'll fix that when I send you guys the final slides. I don't know what I did. But it'll be 14 SEER. Additionally, at the same time, as a separate measure, but at the same time, for AC and heat pump split systems, they used to be tested at 0.1 external static pressure. They are now being tested at 0.5 external static pressure. So what that means is instead of 14 SEER, this also got cut off. So weird. Give me 1 second because now I'm annoyed. 1 second. Is there something? There's a little box hiding it. Nope. Super weird. All right. In any case, it has to be 14 SEER. And I'm confusing myself. Now I feel like the dumbest person ever broadcasting a webinar in my whole life. Here you go. Here's the number in my notes. Thank God there's notes. 13.4 SEER. So it should say 14 SEER. Now changing to 13.4 SEER 2. And for heat pumps, it'll go to 13.8 SEER. Heat pumps 14. Whew. Okay. Let me try this again. My brain is reset. All right. I know you can't see my notes. I thought you guys could see them too. All right. I don't know why it's whited out on the bottom there. The new level, instead of 14 SEER, will be 13.4 SEER 2 for AC systems. For heat pump systems, the new level will be 14 SEER, 14. Oh my God, 14. I'm just going to close the webinar. I'm going to open it back up as if nothing ever happened in my life today. And I'm going to pretend that I was just born right now, and I'm going to start over. I apologize. This probably has not happened to me in like 10 years on a webinar. All right. Good Lord. I'm going to pull up the right chart because otherwise everyone's going to be more confused. So I apologize again. I'm going to pull up the right chart because I don't want everybody to be confused by me putting the wrong crap on the screen. So let me find one that's not got weird font formatting on the slide. Okay. This is what that should have looked like. For some reason, when I cut it, pasted out of my previous webinar, it got all scrambly. So instead of 13 SEER, which we have now, it goes to 14 SEER. And then because of the new rating requirement, it actually will be 13.4 SEER 2. That is the minimum efficiency required in the northern climate. So I apologize for that being all gobbly-gobbly. Okay. Back to my original slides. Holy cow. What does that mean for today? It doesn't really matter for you today. The point of today was actually so you know that many of almost all of these rebates and tax credits are requiring the SEER 2, HSPF 2, EER 2 numbers, and not the old numbers. In regards to the tax credits themselves, all right, this is kind of a snapshot of the 4 things that changed in regards to what we care about for HVAC in the IRA Act that was established in August. So the 25C tax credit for residential systems, which we've had for a long time, that is re-enabled, like I said, for 2022 and enhanced for 2023. And we'll go through this in more detail, but from a 5,000-foot view, you can get up to $600 for an AC instead of $300, $600 for a furnace instead of $150, or actually it's kind of $200 because you got the furnace and the fan. So $600 instead of $200, and then a heat pump instead of $300, you can get $2,000. The geothermal credits, instead of being 22% starting in 2023, that whole phase out schedule basically just reset the clock. So go back up to the 30% for geothermal, and then we start, phasing out slowly, every 10 years after that. 45L, that's a tax credit for new construction homes. So that doesn't apply to most of you guys on this webinar. We can get you more info on that if you need to. That tax credit does not flow the same way these other ones do. It's not on a change out. It's not something you get involved with on a daily basis. The builders are generally the ones involved in that, but you should know it exists. And then 175D is the commercial one, which we can ignore for now. This is just a little snippet of the IRA language, one of like 100+ pages. So you can see why this has been challenging to filter all this information out. But it's all boiled down now. And the Energy Star website finally, as of a month ago, has like pretty good descriptions on here. Although there are a couple of errors on the site, which I'll point out, but they do have pretty good descriptions on here that you can utilize. So for 2023, the furnace tax credit, $600. Technically, it's 30% up to $600. So if you sell someone a furnace and install it for $1,000, then they could only get $300. If you sell it for $2,000, then they could obviously get the full $600, $2,000 or more. They can get the full amount. It does have to be 97% AFUE. That's a change from previous years where for the past decade plus, it's only had to be 95. Now it has to be 97 to get this money. That does close the financial gap between the 95 and 97% equipment. So if 97% equipment is available in your area, which I know is always hard right now with availability of stuff, then that $600 should pay the difference between a 95 and a 97%. If you have a hot water boiler, hot water boilers also 30% up to $600, and they have to be 95% efficient, which is the same as what they were before. So no change on the boiler side, but furnaces have to be more efficient to get the money. This is a screenshot of the CEE tiers that just came out for, well, they just came out again for heat pumps and AC, but the furnaces and boiler ones have been out for a long time. They have the 3 tiers for furnaces, 1, 2, and 3. And the IRA language says to get the 25C tax credit in 2023 and beyond, you have to be at tier 3. Actually, what it says is you have to be at the highest this is so stupid, but the highest non-advanced tier at the start of that year. So at the start of this year, the highest non-advanced tier for a furnace was tier 3. There's an advanced tier where you got to be 120% AFUE. We're not even going to start the debate on how you can be more than 100%, but it's a separate argument for a separate day. But 97% efficient, what you got to be for furnaces, and then boilers right here. The highest tier is tier 2, so 95%. If you guys have questions as we go, type them in the chat box. I'll try to pop over. Steve Wood has asked IRS or IRA. Both of those acronyms are in play today. IRA and IRS. Obviously, IRS is Internal Revenue Service. That is who you're claiming your taxes with every year and getting your rebate from and or paying your money to. The IRA is Inflation Reduction Act, which is a federal bill that was approved back in August, I believe it was, that changed all kinds of things. And for our purposes today, it changed tax credits for residential HVAC systems. All right, everybody else's comments are just bullying me on my F up earlier. So I've done pretty good thus far, but this is the one day that apparently I needed to tongue tie myself to death. All right, I'm gonna close this question thing or move it out of the way for right now. All right. AC. Oops. AC. It's also 30% up to $600. So if you do an AC and a furnace, you can get 600 plus 600 for $1,200. There's a maximum credit of $1,200 for this per year. So it used to be $500 lifetime. Now it's a max credit of $1,200 per year. So you can get $300 on your furnace, $300 on your AC. And then next year, if you have 2 systems at your house and you want to do the other system, you can do the same thing again. This part on the Energy Star website is not fully correct. It says you have to be CE or tier 2 16th year. However, it's not just the 16th year. They're missing some of the requirements. You also need to have 12 EER tier 2 in addition to the 16th year. So if you look on here for split systems, residential AC, you notice I highlighted the second one, not the third one, because the third one is called advanced tier. So that doesn't count. You're not required to do that. And although in this case, it's the same thing, so that's even dumber. But nonetheless, 16 SEER tier 2 and 12 EER 2. You have to have the SEER 2 and EER 2 ratings. You cannot have the regular old school SEER ratings. Those do not count for the tax credit. So anything that's not rated with the SEER 2, automatically not eligible for a tax credit. Same thing goes for heat pumps. We'll talk about those in a couple minutes. You have to have the SEER 2 rating. So things that are obsoleted now because they couldn't meet the minimum federal efficiencies, obviously that wouldn't have got you a tax credit anyway. but that kind of tier of equipment can't do it. And then there's package systems as well. Package means the condensing unit and the furnace assembly are all in one box, basically a rooftop unit, but sitting on the ground residentially, ducted into your house. You don't have to be quite as efficient on those. Those are not super common in our market though. All right, heat pumps. Heat pumps are the wild one. So the maximum credit you can get for everything is $1,200, but then the IRA language has an exception for heat pumps where you can get $2,000 max. So instead of $600 on an AC, you can get $2,000 on a heat pump. Instead of $1,200 maximum for everything added up together, you can get $2,000 for a heat pump. What was not clear up until recently was whether you could get the heat pump money and then also get the furnace money. So if you do a dual fuel system, which is what we probably want to do in most of the markets you guys are in, meaning a heat pump with a gas furnace, could I get the $600 for the furnace and get the $2,000 for the heat pump? It wasn't clear if the $2,000 was a cap to replace the $1,200 or if it was an addition to. The fact of the matter is it's now been defined and it's in addition to. So you can get the $600 for your furnace and the $2,000 for a heat pump, and you can get a $2,600 tax credit if you did those two things simultaneously. The Energy Star website is a little bit of a mess on the ratings section on here, so I didn't highlight those, and instead I highlighted them on the CE documents, and specifically I highlighted them for the North. The problem with the regular Energy Star website is they also care about the South and the Southwest. I don't care about those places. No offense to anybody out there, but I only care about the Northern region. So we're going to focus on that specifically. So the tier we have to get to on a ducted heat pump, whether it's a mini split that's ducted or whether it's a traditional split system that's ducted, I need to get to 15.2 SEER 2 and 10 EER tier 2, 8.1 HSPF. HSPF is heating seasonal performance factor. It's kind of like SEER, but for the heating side. And I have to have a COP, coefficient of performance, at 5 degrees outdoor ambient of 175% efficiency. I gotta do all of those things. And plus I gotta hit this capacity ratio. So this makes it pretty hard to do that. You are usually, to get the very efficient stuff at 5 degrees, you have an inverter, but usually the inverters don't do very good at high EER. So there's kind of this little dilemma here. So if you guys are like Carrier and Bryant dealers, which many of you are, the only thing that's going to be in discussion to get all of these things will be the 24 SEER heat pumps that we have, the ducted ones, and then possibly some of the ductless mini split ones if you're ducting them. But if you're ducting them, you're probably not going to get there. So pretty much it's the 25 VNA 4 and then the 284 model number for the Bryant side is what we're going to have to do. So 2-stage, not getting you there. The 5-stage inverters, not getting you there. It's going to have to be the fully variable speed inverter condensing units to get you all of these numbers on a heat pump. If you have non-ducted, which most of us call ductless, the ductless systems, you got to hit this tier 2 one because it's the highest non-advanced. So you got to be 16, 9, 9.5, and 1.75. You got to hit all of those things on that. And then if you have package, there's an option for that, which means a rooftop unit used in a residential home. Let's see if scroll if there's any more questions popping up. No more new questions. If there are questions, to type them in. I'll try to address them. Water heaters. If you have a natural gas water heater, that is eligible for a tax credit also. $600 cap on that. And then for those, if it's a smaller one, like a 40 or 50 gallon, you got to be 0.81 energy factor, which is pretty efficient. That's going to be definitely, PVC vented type appliance, and not even all PVC ones will make that. But it's going to have to be in that realm, like near condensing type of a product. So that's where you're gonna have to be on that. And then if it's a bigger capacity, you have to be even more efficient. If you're going to go tankless, then you have to be even higher. SEER 2 for that is 0.95. Heat pump water heater is another interesting one because it's a heat pump. It's not subject to the $1,200 limit or the $600 limit. So normally for everything else, other than the word heat pump in something, it's $600 per technology that you install and $1,200 total maximum for the year. Unless you say the word heat pump in it, then all of a sudden both of those things go up to $2,000. So If you have a heat pump water heater, you can get 30% of the cost. All these are 30% of the cost, up to $2,000 on the heat pump water heater. What efficiency do you need to be? You need to be at 3.3. In other words, you need to be 330% efficient on the heat pump water heater test. To go along with all of that, there is another credit, which is kind of weird and different than we've had in the past. If someone wants to upgrade their electrical panel, which I realize is not what most of you guys do, it's not part of your HVAC work, but sometimes when you do some of these applications, it might require that. Now, if you're putting a heat pump in for heating the house and you're doing a dual fuel with the gas furnace, you're pretty much just replacing the AC with the heat pump, and you probably don't need any electrical service upgrades. But if someone's going to go all electric, meaning they want to get rid of all of their gas appliances, which has been a really popular request the past 2 years, but really popular the past 6 months. If they're going to go all electric, then they're going to need electric supplemental heat on the air handler inside because they don't have gas anymore. So in that case, they're going to need an electrical service upgrade, and you can get tax credit money for doing that as well. It has to be done in conjunction with one of those efficiency property upgrades, like a heat pump. But you can kind of get that money as well. So if someone's going all electric, you can get them $2,000 for their heat pump, and then $600 for the electrical service upgrades that will probably be needed to get the electric resistance heaters enough power on the indoor unit. Not directly related to HVAC, but you can get a tax credit for doing a home energy audit. It's 30% up to $150 max. That's where somebody comes in, analyzes all your stuff, not just HVAC, but blower door tests, things like that, and then gives you ideas on what to implement first and when and how much money it would save. So that is a tax creditable thing as well that you can do. So if somebody doesn't have the budget to make all their improvements now, they're just kind of in the planning phase, they probably want to do this. If you need help finding somebody, let me know, especially if you're out in the West Burbs. I know a couple guys that do a really good job of this, so I'll get you connected to those guys. For any of you guys that sat in on the AHRI Seal webinars previously, the AHRI Seal folks have been interpreting this, and I assume they're correct, but I'm not a tax pro, and they're better at that than I am, that if you seal your ductwork, you can get $1,200 of that tax credit, 30% up to $1,200. Now, you're probably not selling the AHRI Seal for that expensively, but let's say you were selling the AHRI Seal. I'll make my math easy because I'm obviously already struggling with things today. Let's say it's $2,000 you're selling this AHRI Seal project for to seal someone's ductwork. 30% of the $2,000 would be $600. If you were selling it for $4,000, then you can get all the way to the $1,200. So for you guys to do AHRI Seal work, keep this in mind. If you're doing AHRI Seal duct sealing while you're doing a furnace and AC change out, probably don't have to figure any of this math out. You probably already capped everything out on the equipment side of the equation. But maybe they're just doing a furnace only and no AC. You could do a furnace with AHRI Seal, get $600 towards the furnace, get $600 back for the tax credit side of the duct sealing. So you can kind of mix and match those as needed. Any other questions? Anybody typing in? Brian says, so with the carrier heat pump package that TEC is offering that meets 16 CFR ComEd, most of them will not meet the requirements for the federal $2,000 tax credit. That is true. And I would just change the word most to all. None of those heat pump bundle packages are going to make the tax credit because none of those bundle packages, in your case, it was carrier. So none of those bundles had the 25 VNA4 model in them. All of those were the 2-stage model or the 5-stage model. And neither one of those is going to be efficient enough to get a tax credit. They're efficient. They're really nice. They're really good price point on that bundle, but they're not going to get you a tax credit. Those are specifically implemented to get the ComEd money. That's what those guys were for. And there was a smoking good price on it. So somebody at our office, I think Jim Ottoman, just kind of made it all happen. But those are not going to get you a tax credit. So the annual limits, this is off the Energy Star website. And this is actually the best place I found a good description of it. Because prior to this, I was just reading IRS interpretations and IRA language, and neither one of those were fun. So the limits are all publicized as $1,200, and then some things like a furnace or a boiler, an AC, $600 for that one thing. But the actual real limit is $3,200. Now, you may not be able to get all of that because you didn't have the right combo of things, but that's the real limit. So essentially what the IRS is saying is that hey, there's this $1,200 limit. We know that, we understand it, blah, blah, blah. Then there's this $2,000 heat pump thing. And the IRA didn't really explain how those relate to each other. They just kind of like didn't address it. And the way this is being interpreted now is you get $1,200 is this bucket, 2,000 this bucket, and those buckets don't connect to each other. So you can get over here on the $1,200 side, you can get a furnace and AeroSeal duct sealing, and then over on the heat pump side, you can get $2,000 there, and you could get $3,200 that way. If you're just doing a furnace with a heat pump, you can get the 600 plus the 2,000, 2,600 combined. If you're doing an AC with a furnace, $1,200, $600 for each. So just kind of keep that in mind. That $2,000 heat pump bucket, though, that caps out no matter what kind of heat pumps you have. So if you have a heat pump water heater you're putting in and a heat pump space conditioning unit you're putting in, that's $2,000 total still. You don't get $2,000 for each one. So if you did them in different years, if you did a heat pump, air source heat pump to heat your home right now, you can get $2,000. And then on January 2nd next year, you put in a heat pump water heater, you could get the $2,000 again, because there's no longer a lifetime limit. It's now an annual limit. So hopefully that makes sense. They even give you an example in here of something like that. I cut and paste this right out of there because I'm super lazy. So you can take the $2,000 heat pump credit and combine it with one or two of those $600 credits that we talked about for furnace, AC, things like that. If you want to do a heat pump water heater at the same time as your heat pump heater, you'd have to split those into 2 different years. But you can do right now, you can do a heat pump with a gas furnace and get $2,600, a heat pump with an electrical service upgrade because you're going to go all electric for $2,600. You could do it that way. In addition to these tax credits for HVAC related things, just be aware there are other ones. I'm not going to go through them today. The geothermal heat pump I've already mentioned, but you have to go look at the actual SEER and EER ratings that you need to get that money. But you can make building improvements. You can put insulation in, better windows, etc. You can add solar thermal panels like they're shown in this picture, solar electrical panels. There's all kinds of things you can do to get other tax credits as part of 25C. Let's see what else. Is the credit for sealing ductwork only applicable if it's AeroSeal? Great question. There's not a really good definition of how well you have to seal ductwork to get the money. So I suppose someone could be unscrupulous and spend 3 minutes throwing some duct mastic on, take a picture of it, just like right there at the furnace, and say they duct seal and they want their $1,200. I don't think that's really the intent of it. So what I've been telling people, until it's better defined by the IRS, I've been telling people, if you're doing duct sealing work for utility rebate and you're doing it to that level of tightness and that quality, I would feel really good about taking that utility, whatever certificate you gave them for your pre and post test of duct sealing, taking that certificate and using that for my taxes as well. Because then there's no real definition. So, but if I lean on with the way the utility defines it, I feel pretty good about that. But if you're just going to go put a couple pieces of foil tape on and say you seal the duct, that would be something that you'd have a little trouble if you ever got audited. Obviously, all of these things are subject to audit because they're IRS related. And obviously, you could easily cheat and the IRS probably won't know unless you're the person that gets audited, and then you get caught cheating and then it's a real mess for you. So I would feel good about using the utility thresholds as my metric to decide if I've sealed the duct well enough. And usually actually always those utility thresholds require a pre and post test to show you've sealed it X amount of percentage. And they also require some portion of the duct work that you're sealing to be in a unconditioned or semi-conditioned space. If you got an apartment or a condo rather, and you got your furnace just sitting or your air handler just sitting there and there's 2 feet of duct on it, it's all inside the thermal envelope. There's no credit for that. So hopefully that helps Alexandria's question. Dominic asks, are these credits tied to income? I think I understand what you're asking. So for your question, I'm going to say no, but the answer is actually yes. And by that, and I'll define it more later too. But for right now, these are tax credits, which means you have to have a tax liability in order to get it a credit. So let's say you file your taxes and your taxes calculate out that you owe $6,000 in taxes. Not that you owe, but for the whole year you had to pay $6,000, right? And let's say coming out of your paycheck, you've already withheld $6,000. So you'd have been even for the year, no refund, no owed, been even. But you had $6,000 of tax liability the $2,000 would come off that, and now all of a sudden you would get a $2,000 rebate for that heat pump, or $600 for the furnace, or whatever it was. If you didn't make any money for the year and your taxes basically came out that you didn't have to pay anything, not that you didn't owe a thing to, and when you filed your taxes, but you didn't have to pay anything at all, then you wouldn't be able to get it. There are other things, the IRA rebates, that are separate and unrelated to the, almost unrelated to these tax credits, that are tied to income, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. More questions on the tax credits here before we move on to some of the rebate stuff. I don't see anything else in this chat box. Okay, if there's more, just type them in. I'll come back to them. But for right now, let's just highlight some of the local utility rebates for most of you guys that are in the area. I realized a bunch of you guys registered this morning, but the ones that registered last week, I kind of looked to see what utilities you're from. And no surprise, you're in the utilities that are in my backyard, because that's the people that I probably sent the invite to. But we'll just kind of highlight some of those for 2023 in case you have not been paying attention. NIPSCO, which is Northwest Indiana. These are the rebates that we have over at NIPSCO. These are basically unchanged from recent years. So same kind of thing as before, 95% furnace, $200, 92, $200, smart stat, 65. If you're doing a 97% efficient furnace, someone can get the $600 tax credit on their federal taxes next year, and they can get $200 from NIPSCO immediately. By the way, I should probably go back a little bit real quick. I didn't say it on here, but all these tax credits that we talked about, every one of them is for primary residence only. If you have a vacation home, you cannot use the tax credit for that. Geothermal is an exception to that. But in general, these tax credits that we described, primary residence only. Where is your main residence that you're putting down as your official address on your tax form? That's the one you can do it on. If you have a second house, great. You got a cabin up in Wisconsin, great. You can get utility rebates up there, but you cannot get tax credits on your vacation homes. All right. Utility rebates you can, so you can double do it. If it's your primary house and you want to get a $200 rebate from NIPSCO on your furnace, and then $600 tax credit, you can do both of those things. The rebates from the utilities will be coming quickly, 1 to 2 months delay. The tax credits, you'll be waiting a year from now to get your money back on the tax credit. Other stuff of interest on there, there's multiple tiers for AC. So depending on how efficient you get on the AC, they are still listing it as SEER. It's not super clear to me on how they're going to handle that. Some utilities have made it clear, some have not. I think it's because some of them don't even realize there is a SEER 2. I have a formula to convert from SEER to SEER 2. It's not like an official thing because it is a different test, but we have it in the Illinois TRM guide. And I can send that to anybody who wants it, but NIPSCO may or may not accept that. Illinois utilities would. So we'll talk about that. And then additional rebates over on the NIPSCO side for the heat pump side of the equation. So you can do that as well. It's basically kind of mirroring the efficiencies that we have on the AC side. Right? These are nice but modest heat pumps, but you could double dip them once again with the tax credit. $2,000 tax credit for an ultra efficient heat pump, and then another $300 from NIPSCO for that. And the same thing with the water heater, $2,000 water heater tax credit, and then another $750 rebate from NIPSCO. If you are in the ComEd territory, which is majority of Northern Illinois, these are your rebates for the year. 2 or 3 years ago, ComEd switched to a midstream program for these kind of rebates, meaning AC and heat pump. That means you get your rebates from us, your distributor that you bought the equipment from, not from the utility. The rebate goes from us to the contractor. And the expectation is that the contractor gives a discount to the homeowner. So if the whole bill for the homeowner is going to be, I don't know, $12,000, and you owe them a $1,000 ComEd rebate, which I realize is not even a dollar amount on here, but then you would give, you'd bill them $12,000. You'd have a line item in there that said $1,000 rebate from ComEd, total due $11,000. That's how that program would work. And then you would apply for your rebate through TEC on our website, and we would credit your regular account with us. So you have a credit, on there for your next invoice. ComEd has had the foresight to know that there is the SEER 2, but they also understand that we, and sometimes you, have inventory of old equipment that doesn't have a SEER 2 rating. You bought it in September. It's just sitting there. It has a SEER rating only, not SEER 2. So for this year and this year only, they are allowing you to use the old SEER rating on your rebate claim or the new SEER 2 rating. And this is kind of showing you what the equivalency would be, right? So if you were going to try to get a 16 SEER rebate, the current equivalent of that would be 15 points SEER 2. You could do either one of those ratings and get in this case, $175. So AC 125, 175, 225. If you do heat pumps for ComEd, the heat pump rebates skyrocketed in September 13th and later, they skyrocketed, and you can get for a ductless system, $1,350, and then for ducted systems, $1,400 or $2,000, depending on whether you're mid efficiency or high efficiency on there. For this program, it is SEER rating only on these ducted heat pumps. They do not have a requirement for HSPF. So for tax credits, you got to get the SEER, the EER, the HSPF, the COP, all of those things have to line up. For ComEd, you just have to hit the SEER or the SEER 2, and then you get your money. The other side of that stuff, they just assume is going to be good as well because you did a good job on the cooling efficiency. And for the most part, that's usually correct. This program, when it came out in September, is what caused TEC to create those bundles for dual fuel systems. We have a furnace and a heat pump, either the 2-stage or the 5-stage version. So that's what those bundles were driven for, was to meet this requirement. You can use them in other areas. If you want to install it over the border in somebody's house in Wisconsin, you can do that. If you're one of our Indiana customers, you can buy these bundles as well, and you can use them. They're really, really good prices on heat pumps, but right, if you're doing it in Indiana, let's say you're NIPSCO in Indiana, you'd be getting this dollar amount. So you get a really good deal on a heat pump bundle, and then you would get either, $150, $200, or $300 from your utility rebate, but not a tax credit. ComEd has other rebates beyond these midstream ones. They have the traditional type of filing where you or the customer files the rebate, not related to your distributor. Mainly because these things typically don't go through a distributor. Well, Geo does, but Geo's pretty unique. But you can do duct sealing and get $250 there. SmartStat, $100, like an Ecobee, for example, or that kind of thing. You can do tune-ups on existing equipment that they already have, and then geothermal systems. So let's say that you were going to do duct sealing. You could get the tax credit money for the duct sealing, and you can get the $250 from ComEd. And as you'll see in a minute, you can get the money from your gas company. You can add all those things together. That's totally acceptable. Same thing with SmartStats. You can add electric rebate and gas rebate. There's no tax credit for that one, but you can still multi-dip some of these things. Let's see if we have any other questions. Jim says, how do you register for rebates? It depends on which utility and which program. So that always makes it really fun. But if you are talking about the slide that was up when you asked the question, which was ComEd, that would be on our website right here. As long as you bought the equipment from us, you go on that website, you fill it out. You will need to know the customer's ComEd account number. So that way ComEd can verify they're actually a customer of ComEd. They're not going to give a rebate to somebody who's not, because there are towns here that are not ComEd, right? Naperville, St. Charles, Geneva, Winnetka, excuse me. They don't have ComEd, so they can't get a rebate from ComEd. So yeah, you just go on our website, you just fill it out, and one of the questions is going to be the customer's account number. Another question on there is going to be your invoice number from TEC, and then there's a few other questions. You fill that out, and then you'll get your credit applied to us. Alexandria asks, can they apply for tax credits if the work is being performed on a rental property? No, because the tax credits have to be your primary residence. So they would have to be living at that property currently, do the upgrades, and then they can move out, and then, so be it, right? But at the time that they did the work, they would have had to live there. So if someone's like flipping a house where they move in, rehab it, and then move out, yes, you could do that. But if they're living at their regular house while they're making improvements at some rental property 2 miles away, no, you can't do that for the tax credit. And then follow-up question from Alexandria. What about the rebates? Yes, the rebates, like the one I'm showing from ComEd here, or the NIPSCO one we talked about, yes, you can do those at your primary residence and at rental properties. And then depending on what kind of rental property, if you're just talking about renting a house, yeah. If it's a rental property where you own a multifamily property building, then there's different types of rebates that are not the single family ones, but there are stuff for that. Let's see. Let's hit some more of these questions before we keep going. Brian, going back to the $2,000 federal credit, we just looked up a certificate. He gave me a number of it and a bundle, and it looks like it hits all those required ratings. Brian, I'm going to have to shelve that for another day where I can, or another moment today where I can look all of that up. But I already know I can answer this already because he put all those answers in there. But the one thing he doesn't have, you're missing this column, I think. Right. So you got the SEER, you found one with the SEER, EER, and HSPF2, but did you get the 1.75 at COP at 5 degrees? That is probably not going to get there with a 2-stage unit that you were talking about. It'll be less efficient than that, so it won't qualify. That's probably what's holding that one up. All right. If that's not it, then hit me up afterwards. My email will be on the last slide. Hit me up afterwards and we'll go into more detail on yours. Kimberly asks, going forward, is it safe to say we will no longer use the SEER verbiage and use SEER 2? Yes, correct. SEER is dead. Nothing can be rated in SEER ever again. The last rating that something could have had would have been December 31st. Everything is SEER 2. And you probably should be start getting used to saying SEER and SEER 2. Because there's going to be both overlapping right now because people have SEER equipment in inventory. They just can't build any more of it. And then a few years from now, like 5 years from now, we'll probably just start saying SEER again, even though we mean SEER 2 because we'll just all get lazy about it. But yeah, for right now, for the next year or two, you should definitely spell out SEER or SEER 2 whenever you're talking about anything. Kathy says duct sealing for Nightcore and ComEd rebates don't seem to apply to single system homes with finished basements. Yes, for both of those and most utility rebates around the country, duct sealing rebates need to have some percentage of the ductwork be in an unconditioned space or in semi-conditioned space. So if your basement's totally finished and all your ductwork's in the basement, and if you look up, it's right there in the ceiling and you see it, that would not qualify. But if some percentage of your ductwork is going into wall cavities, going into crawl spaces next to the basement, then you can start qualifying. And then obviously if your basement's not finished at all, then you have a better chance as well. But yeah, so it depends on the kind of houses you have. And where Kathy is based, we have a lot of newer building stocks. So there's a lot of finished basements, whereas other places, maybe not. But yeah, so finished basements, you can qualify, but the ductwork has to be going in some spaces that are not finished. Sharon asks, is the COP at 5 degrees on AHRI? It is not currently on there. That is one of the challenges in getting this stuff. So we'll talk about that in a little bit here after we get to the utility rebates. All right, so we did these. For you guys that are on the Nightcore side, the rebates are fundamentally unchanged, which is nice. You don't have to learn anything new. Same rebates we've had in the past. For 97% furnace is $225, 95% is $150. Boiler price rebates didn't change. Smart stats didn't change. What is new for 2023 is there's a bundle now where you get the furnace and the smart stat together. So if you look at down here, $25 for a smart stat and $225 for 95% efficient furnace, that would equate to $250. But if you do them on one application, you can get $275. Basically, what's going on here is it's not super efficient for them to process an application for a smart thermostat for $25. It probably costs them more than $25 in processing fees. So there's encouraging it to be bundled with the furnace just to make it easier, more cost effective for them to give the money out in that case. That's the big change on the Nightcore side. Nothing really changes with the efficiency levels. Nothing really changes with the smart stat approval list. It's going to be Energy Star stats plus extra ones that they have approved, which includes things like Evolution and Infinity stats. But nothing fundamentally changes other than the bundling. And then there still is the duct sealing rebate, which is $500. Once again, it's just like ComEd, a certain percentage of the ductwork has to be inside the conditioned thermal envelope, be outside the conditioned thermal envelope, or in a semi-conditioned space. And those definitions are not super tight, but in Kathy's case, with all the ductwork being inside the basement and the basement's finished, no, but it's got to go somewhere else, up a wall cavity or something. So you could get on duct sealing, you could get this $500, plus you could get the get the 250. So that gets you $750 in rebates from the two utilities plus the tax credit. So you could get quite a bit of money back, and maybe end up paying for half of your aerial seal work if it's the right project that qualifies for all of this. Oh, it's the same thing. If you are in Peoples Gas or North Shore Gas, those two programs are identical to each other. Nothing really has changed here at all either. 95% furnace, $200. Boiler, $350 for condensing boiler. Programmable stats or smart stats rather, $25 still. You could double dip that with ComEd just like you could with Nightcore. So nothing really changes there. They also have duct sealing. In their case, it caps out at $400. If you're doing aerial seal, I believe this is still true, but for the past 5 or 6 years since they've had this, they've never had an aerial seal project not cap out. So maybe it'll happen someday, but it's $2 per CFM technically, and then caps at 400. But we sealed so tight with aerial seal, it's easy to get to 400. For you guys over the border in Wisconsin, here's your rebates. I'm sure you're familiar with this. For Wisconsin, it's nice because it's one program for pretty much the whole state. So there's less fishing around on websites digging for something. But they have efficiency tiers for 95, 96, and 97% efficient furnaces for 50, 100, 150 bucks. They also have a low income program that people can qualify for larger rebates on. They are still giving out ECM motor upgrade rebates. Boilers are on here, 95%, 400 bucks, less efficient, 300 bucks. Other items on here, cold climate heat pump. There's that same 1.75 COP at 5 degrees. We'll talk about how to find those kinds of systems in a minute. But you get a $1,300 rebate there. So they have a pretty big rebate like ComEd. So right now, Wisconsin and Illinois have really big rebates on heat pumps that you can get money back on. And ductless, $1,000. So there's pretty good money there. And they also have switched over to the SEER 2 nomenclature. If you have something that's in your inventory and that is older and is only rated in the regular SEER, none of the 2 stuff, what you should do is contact them and ask them if they'll approve it. And they may go ahead and approve it for X amount of months until they know people's inventory is out. I know ComEd will do this because I've already done it on them, but I have not done it on Wisconsin yet, but they might say yes to that. But officially, it's got to be SEER 2. So Indiana is still on SEER for their rebate. Well, at least NIPSCO is. Wisconsin is on SEER 2. Illinois is accepting both right now. And then also duct sealing rebates there. It's not a very large rebate in that case, but it's free money, right? All right, what other questions popped up? Do the rebates through ComEd only apply if the contractor is registered with the contractor circle? The contractor circle is a Nightcore program, and you can get rebates while you're in that program or not in that program. ComEd, some rebates do require you to be involved in a program with ComEd, some don't. So duct sealing, geothermal, those ones require you to be in a special ComEd program. But other ones like AC or heat pump at ComEd do not require you to be in any specific program. You probably still need to keep your ICC certification updated with the state though. Kathy comments only one thermostat per household. I assume she's referring to ComEd. That is true. You only get one. You can get multiple AC rebates, but you can only get one smart stat rebate. I don't understand why, because it's not a big dollar amount, but it is what it is. But yeah, if you have 2 systems in your house, you only get the 25 bucks on the one, or it's not 25 bucks, the 100 bucks. Usually I gotta go back. 100 bucks for one thermostat. And actually, I think Nightcore is the same way. I think Nightcore is the same way. One thermostat qualifies for 25 bucks, but you can get multiple furnaces. Not sure how that evolved. All right. I don't see any more other questions. Kathy says ComEd and Nightcore, yes. Systems no limit, yes. Okay, so we're in agreement. All right. The other white elephant in the room, or whatever you call it, the gorilla in the room, I don't even know what it's called, is the IRA rebate. So in August, when the new Inflation Reduction Act came out, I should say the reflation, not new, the came out, reestablished these 25C tax credits we talked about earlier. but it also established some rebates that are available for some of the exact same things. And there's some overlap there to a degree. So, and this is not part of that tax credit we talked about. This is something different. You can get, if you convert your house to all electric, you can get $8,000 on an all electric heat pump system, meaning you get rid of your gas service and you only have a heat pump or heat pump with electric resistance backup. You can also get $4,000 for electrical upgrades related to that, $2,500 for helping making that wiring happen, and you can cap out at $14,000 in rebates. This is the one that has income limits that somebody asked about earlier. I forget who it was. So there are income thresholds on that. If you're under 80, and you got to look at the definitions of what those things mean. But if you're under 80% of the median income level for that year that's established, then you get the full credit. And then if you're between 80 and 150% of the median, you can get 50% of the credit. And then if you're above 150, you don't get this credit. You cannot get this, I should say credit, it's not a credit, it's a rebate. You cannot get this rebate and get the tax credit. Is an either or scenario. I don't know, it's hard to understand what your legislators do and why, but I think this exists to help the lower income folks and middle income folks that might not have enough tax liability to get tax credits. Plus, these things are still fairly expensive for a lot of people because we're talking about ultra efficient heat pumps. We're not talking about really nice 2 and 5 stage units. We're talking about fully modulating inverter type units that cost a lot of money. So I think this exists to help those low and middle income families actually do this. So you would not get the tax credit, and instead you would get this money. Now, the catch with this money, and this is the language from the IRA, which is super exciting, defining what those dollar amounts are: $1,750 for a heat pump water heater, $8,000 for a space heating system. You can get upgrades, $1,600 for insulation and air sealing, and you can cap out at $1,400 plus the electrical upgrades that I talked about, $1,400 cap. The problem with this is it doesn't exist yet. This was put into the law in August. That $4.3 billion of money is going to go from the federal government to the individual 50 states. And then the 50 individual states will decide how and when to distribute the money. These are the rules they have to play by, but beyond these rules, they can do other things. They can choose to make more rules, add on stuff to it, bundle it with other things. It is not clear how that will be utilized in any state, and definitely not how it's utilized in some of our Midwestern states. I'm personally hoping that the individual states, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, etc., choose to hand the money to the utility programs along with the set of rules they want them to implement, and let them just bundle that with their other programs, as opposed to the state creating some kind of application form where you fill it out and then they mail you a rebate check. That sounds like a nightmare. The last time we did that in Illinois, like 15 years ago, the money was, first of all, the money was gone in 3 weeks, which is horrible. And it did not flow very well, and everyone was frustrated with the whole process because the state's not set up to do that. So I'm hoping that's what they do. I know ComEd's hoping that's what they do, but I don't know what they're actually going to do. The best guess that anybody's given me thus far is that the earliest that this would be even defined would be August. So what does that mean for you guys, residential dealers? That means don't talk about it. Don't mention it to customers. Hey, you can get $14,000. As soon as you say that, and then you say, but you won't get it until next fall, you've just killed your project for something that may or may not even work for them, and they may or may not even qualify for. Just do the tax credits and the utility rebates and move on. This is something for you to be aware of, but do not talk to customers about it yet because they can't get it yet. And until it's defined by the state, not really any reason to mention it to them. That's all the stuff I was just talking about. Okay, more questions before I talk a little bit about these AHRI ratings. Okay, there are several. Let me briefly close this and instead open this. So hopefully, I'm assuming you guys can still see my screen. All right, so hopefully you guys have been to this site. Okay, yeah, it's popping up correctly. So this is one of 3 places that I go to get AHRI ratings for stuff. And it is not one of the places you probably go. You guys probably go to the manufacturer's websites. I don't ever do that. I stopped doing that 10 years ago, mainly because the utilities don't do that. They go to the HRI directory, like I'm showing you right now. So if I'm trying to figure out if somebody's then qualifies, I'm going to go to the same place that ComEd or Focus on Energy is going to go, and then I'll know for sure. In any case, this is where you would go for that. There's also the CEE database, which is internally embedded with AHRI. And then there's the NEEP database for cold climate heat pumps. And for right now, you kind of have to overlap those things, which is very unfortunate until this is a little better. So in any case, ahridirectory.org. There is another main AHRI site. Do not go to that one. Go to the one ahridirectory.org. You're going to go up here to product type. In our case, we're going to go to residential. Residential and commercial does not mean the kind of building you're putting it in. It means how was the equipment rated under which standards. So if you're putting in a 4-ton package system at someone's house, that would end up going under commercial, right? Which is weird. But in any case, for us, residential, oops, I gotta get rid of this other screen. Here's my choices here. I have AC I might be going to. I have heat pumps I might be going to. I have water heaters, water heat pumps. I have variable speed mini split heat pumps. That would be my ductless systems typically. All of those are on there. When you go to one under, say, air conditioning, you have a choice of AHRI or international. You're going to pick AHRI because that's what counts around here. Same thing if you go down to heat pumps, AHRI. I got a whole recorded video on how to use these sites if anybody wants it, but you have some filtering fields you can use down here. And you could also go to more filtering fields. But you'll notice on here that you have things like cooling capacity, SEER, EER. Further down here, you have the new ratings, SEER 2, EER, right? So if you're looking for something specific, like you're trying to get to a 15.2 SEER 2 machine, you would click on there. Maybe if you're a specific brand of a dealer, so maybe you go and pick whatever that is, Bryant off the list. Sometimes there's more than one. Care does the same thing. I don't understand what happened in that, and other manufacturers occasionally have it. Just pick them both, because I couldn't tell you why the one's in one bucket, one's the other. In this case, I said I want a Bryant that meets 15.2, right? Actually, let's do it. We'll do it more specifically. We'll get one that we'll pick one off the requirements. So I want to get one that is, let's say I want to get a tax credit one. So I need to get 16 and I need to get 12 here. Those are the two requirements for an AC tax credit system for $600. Then I would hit search. And it's going to come up with a whole bunch of stuff. And then I'm going to want to whittle my list down because it's going to be too big. 3,000 combos right now. That's too many. I can't digest that. So I'll start whittling that thing down. And the way you do that is by adding stuff. So I normally start off easy and then I add more stuff to it, right? You can see I don't have a lot of fields to work with here. I did more when I expand it out. But I could say, oh, you know what, if I only want whatever, in Evolution series stuff, I can put a 28 in there, right? Or sorry, this is AC, an 18 in there, and I can limit it down to Evolution stuff on there. I want a certain model number furnace, I can limit that down. I can keep whittling my search down smaller and smaller. And then when I find the ones that I want, I can look at all those ratings on here, whatever they are, old SEER ratings and SEER 2. Some of them have both, like this one. Some of them don't have both because they aren't tested that way. And on the left would be my actual certificate that I could pick. And then I would send that certificate to my customer. If you're doing heat pumps, you go to product type. And by the way, furnaces and boilers are really easy. Right, furnaces, I'll do that real quick first. There's like nothing to search for. Like, well, what brands do you want, man? Okay, let's stick with the Bryant theme that I already started earlier. Bryant theme, right? And then if I want more fields, I want a certain efficiency, I can click advanced search. Oh, I should have picked my brand down here. Bryant. And then let's say I want one that gets the tax credit money. So you guys probably know now that has to be 97% efficient. And if I hit that, it'll give me all the ones that qualify. There are 6 models. I don't need to filter it any tighter than that because I can scan a list of 6, right? In this case, it's just the size of each one. And if you're doing utility rebates, then obviously your list is bigger. Heat pumps, there's more stuff and boilers work the same way as furnaces, super easy. But heat pumps and AC are harder because it's a combination of indoor coil, outdoor unit, and indoor blower assembly that gets you your rating. So for heat pumps, it works just like the AC did, but now I have a SEER, EER, and HSPF that I'm going to want to plug in. So say I want to get a tax credit system, I would go to SEER 2, 15.2. I would go to 10, and I would go to 8.1. And then to somebody's point earlier, I don't have a COP5 field to search here. So we'll have to address that. So I hit search to come up with all the ones that meet all of those things, except I haven't filtered for the COP5 yet. So 64,000 combinations, that is a lot of stuff. Why did I get Carrier and Lennox units on here? Did I not select my manufacturer? Say that's a lot of answers. All right, try that again. The new Carrier and Lennox branded Bryant units coming soon to you. All right, now I'm at 2,000 combos, which makes more sense. So these are the ones that meet everything we talked about, except that COP5. So that's going to be the challenge point. What I'm doing currently for that COP5, until it's better represented, is I'm taking it from this well-established site that many of us have used for several years, ashp.neep.org. When you go to that site, you can filter down, which we'll just go to it. So go to the NEEP site. It is equally as friendly to use as the AHRI site, right? Why is it asking me for a login? What's going on there? ASHP, maybe I spelled that wrong, NEP.org. Okay, let's try that again. That's better. I don't know what that other site was. I almost logged into it. In this case, I'm going to say that I'm an installer distributor, and there's a million combinations on here, and I can start whittling them down. So if I already found something on here that was like, oh, that sounds like it's pretty close, I could then go on here, and in my case, I'll search for Bryant. I'll filter that out and get rid of half the model numbers. But even if I just do that, I mean, the list is going to be ginormous. 1,500 of them qualify, but they're all going to be like the same unit. Like seriously, they're going to be all this. Well, I got the 38 series stuff on there too, but let's just stick it with the regular ones, the 28 series stuff. All right, so now I have 1,100 combos. All of them are going to be 284 A and B models. All of them are. Why is that one still showing up on here? It's annoying. Okay. Is that? Oh, because there's 28 in there somewhere, maybe. Got rid of it. All right, 284. Got rid of all the horizontal units. I went with the standard heat pumps. So these guys will all be on here. They give you the AHRI rating number, and then you get the BTU capacity at 47 degrees, which all heat pumps are tested at. They're always tested at 14 and 17. Every model is always tested at those two. But you're also getting the 5-degree one, which means it's for cold climate applications. This website is only cold climate stuff, cold climate air source list. So if it's not meant to be used in a cold climate, it's not going to show up on this list. So it's going to be pretty much all of the ones we need. And then if you look at the COP at 5, it's on there. And they're only going to list ones that meet the 1.75. That's what this site does. Unrelated to the tax credits, the site's been around for a while. And anything that hits 1.75 at 5 degrees can get on that list. That's how you get on the list. So unfortunately for right now, you got to go find something on AHRI and then make sure it works here. But I'll make your life easy and just know for Bryant, it has to be a 284 model. And for Carrier, it's going to be a 25 VN84. Those will be the ones that will be listed on there. That's it. And then some of the horizontal like mini split type units, but that's a different discussion. You will not get the 2 stages on here, and you will not get the 5-stage inverters on here. What will eventually happen is you will have the ability to go to the CEE tier database. And that is actually embedded inside AHRI. But for the things we care about right now, which specifically would be the heat pump discussion. Oh, maybe they updated it right now. Let's see if they did. Up until now, it said coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. Oh, it didn't do anything different for me. I'm still in the coming soon category, I think, here. I might be able to search it. It might be searchable now. It wasn't searchable last week. But this does not look right. Oh, it just gives me the specs and I got to manually find it on my own. Yeah. So it's not searchable yet, but it will be searchable like it used to be once they update this whole database. Then you'll have the fields you need to search for both the COP at 5 and everything else. All right, what else? I thought this was going to be a half an hour somehow. No. Open the questions back up. I don't see any other questions on here. I'll leave it open for another minute or two in case somebody's typing something. Hopefully this was at least partially useful, if not confusing. Russ asks, what was the CEE site address? Yeah, so it's really long and complicated. So if you saw what I did, I always just Google CEE tier database. I probably should do a smarter thing than that. But and when you click on it, here's the actual link. AHRI.net, so not AHRI directory, AHRI.net.org/certification/CEE-directory. Less obvious than the other ones, but honestly, Googling CE tier database is what usually gets me there. And then all that stuff is on how that program works and everything, because it's kind of part of the AHRI little buddy system over here. And then you just scroll down, you can access the directories. And some of the stuff, you know, like you can do it right now. Like if I go to furnaces, I mean, I'll be able to search it right now. Like, and it looks very similar to the AHRI one, except you get some additional fields like the CE tiers. I don't know why they don't just put this on the regular stuff, but you have to come here to get it. But then the new one, because it just came out, the AC and the heat pump ones just changed literally December or late November. So they haven't updated all these, you know, thousands, hundreds of millions of combinations of split systems. So that's not there yet. And this one's probably not there yet either. Yeah. But furnaces will be there. Boilers will be there. You can search those ones right now. Right, you can say which tier you want, and in our case, like if I'm going to boiler and I want to get a tax credit, I know I got to go to the tier. Let me go back up to the tier 2 of the tax credit. Right, so there's 2 tiers for tax credit. I got to go to the highest tier available to get it. So I can click on this. I can pick my favorite brand, whatever it is. Let's go with this one. And there's nothing on there. Perfect. Perfect. I like when I pick an example that doesn't work. HTP. We'll definitely have ones that qualify. And they got 16 models that qualify for the tax credit currently. They probably have more than 16 models, but 16 qualify. So let's just see how many they have. Okay, everything from HTP qualifies for residential size boilers. They're awesome. What else? More questions? Kimberly asked, can we view this again later? Yes, I recorded this, so I'll post that on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and just search TEC Tube, it'll be up there sometime today. Jeff says, is TEC selling any tier 2 units? Just tell me what kind of equipment we're talking about, Jeff, and then I'll look to see what that means. Furnaces, yes, because that's 95%. Boilers, yes, that's 95% for tier 2. Central AC, 16 and 12, yes, but that's going to be like it's going to be you're not going to get there with a 5-stage inverter unit for AC. You're going to have to do something with a lot of surface area to get the high EER. Heat pumps, that's the 15.2, 10, 8.1, 1.75. So for heat pumps, there's only a tier 1. So I'm assuming your question must have been AC. AC furnace, boiler, or water heater has a tier 2. But yes, we saw all of those. Jeff put in 25 VNA as the answer to the question. So there is no tier 2 for heat pumps. There's just tier 1, and that level CE tier 1 will be the 25 VNA. 25 VNA 8 would not make it because of that COP number and the ER number. 25 VNA 4 usually will make this. The 5-ton might not. But in general, 5 tons really struggle to get any high EERs because you're kind of capped out on space. Usually people's 5 tons are in their 4-ton cabinet. I could also argue that no one needs a 5-ton unit. So let me know if you have a 5-ton application residentially, and we'll help you redo your load calc. What else? More questions? All right. Well, if you need something, I'll throw my contact info back on the screen one last time. You can hunt me down. So that's me. I do apologize for the early screen error where it wasn't showing the tier 2 numbers. I don't know what happened there. So I apologize for that. Thank you for bearing with me. Oops. And other than that, I'm gonna let you guys go.